this official kickoff event for the area of advanced health engineering. We are very happy that so many of you have shown an interest in this area of advance, and also that you decided to join us here today. We would have loved to have you here in Runan, but as things are, we really appreciate that you take your time and participate from wherever you are. My name is Martin Fagerström, and I am since a few weeks back Vice Director for this area of advance. It's a very inspiring and exciting area, if you ask me. Today I will be your guide through the program, so you will meet me from time to time, but without further delay, I would like to invite our first speaker. We are very happy that Ann-Marie Wennberg, Professor Ann-Marie Wennberg, CEO of Sahlgrenska University Hospital, has found time in our very busy schedule and come and visit us here today. So we really look forward to hearing your perspectives on the challenges that we are facing in health, and hopefully some ideas and benefits from collaboration together. So please.
Thank you so much. I'm really delighted and happy to be here, and I would like to thank all the organizers for inviting me. I'm just going to talk a little bit about Sahlgrenska University Hospital and also about cooperation, because that's the way forward, actually. So looking just down the hill here, we have a part of Sahlgrenska University Hospital. It's the largest university hospital in Sweden, and it's one of the larger ones in Europe. We have a staff of almost 17,000 people, and as you can see, we have, I would say, a healthy budget. Sometimes we think it's never enough, but still. We have three important missions as a university hospital, and that is our clinical work, and that is spoken a lot about, but also we have the R&D, the research, the education, development and innovation, a very important mission. And we also have to and want to contribute to an attractive region. And how do we do that? Well, among other things, we are collaborating with you, Chalmers University of Technology, with Gothenburg University, but also with industry. And this is of great importance, and I will get back to this because we are a small country, 10 million inhabitants approximately. I think we are as large as Berlin in Germany with surroundings, so that we have to cooperate and collaborate. What do we do at Sahlgrenska University during 1 year? Well, we do a lot of interventions and operations. We have, looking at the out-clinic patients, we have 1.2 million. And then we also have great cooperation with Sahlgrenska Academy, and we perform and publish a number of publications. We also want to emphasize on academic career. And when you take different degrees in the academic career, you get a salary supplement. And we have just recently raised this because we see this as a great important thing, that our staff is well educated within research and education. And why is that? Well, you hear about this all the time. What are the challenges we are facing? Well, we have an increased population. We have more survivors than ever. For example, we can do a lot for patients with cancer. And we also can do a lot for patients with chronic diseases. And since we are getting older, we get more of the fragile elderly, and we also get more babies. Actually, we can now make it happen that it can, a baby in week 22 can survive. That is also something fantastic. But then we have these challenges. We have a limited financial resource. We also have a limited access to staff. So how do we go about making this equation come through? Well, that is one of the things are research and innovation. And I say that yesterday's science, that is today's common practice. That is what we practice every day in the clinical work. And that is why it's so important that today's research and science come through, because this will be what we do in the ordinary work the days to come. And then, that's why I'm here, cooperation, collaboration, that is of great importance. And these persons, they started out contributing, and we have to take this tradition further. We have a good collaboration, but we can make it even better. I think this is something that we have to really put emphasis in. One of the examples, there are many examples, that is Scapis. And this is a collaboration between Sahlgrenska University Hospital, Sahlgrenska Academy, and Chalmers University of Technology. And here we are teaching computers to recognize signs of future disease in the heart. So maybe we will be able to prevent heart attacks. And then looking into competence. This is something that is changing over time. Yesterday's competence, this is an OR from way back when, needed that type of competence. Today, these are operating rooms with really advanced technology. I'm saying because you can see the lamps there up to the right. You almost need to be a PhD just to turn on the lights in the right way. So, the future healthcare professionals, a number of them need to have knowledge in technology, in engineering, because this is what the medical field has to deal with a lot, and it's increasing all the time. So maybe, or I know that some of our professionals, healthcare professionals, will have a combination of technology knowledge, engineering knowledge, and health care knowledge in order to perform the best for our patients. And we also have started a very unique initiative, and that is for doctors that are training to be specialists. They will have and can take a course in innovation and technology. It just recently started. And this is a part-time program, deals with 20% of the time during 2 years. It's theory and practice combined. And the doctors learn to pursue technological innovation and also project management. And it's very popular. We have a long queue wanting to take part of this education. But we mustn't forget what is the main thing, well, that is or are our patients. What are the needs of our patients? How can we collaborate also with our patients? And I usually say it's like an empty swimming pool. It's only a dry run without the patients. So that's why it is so important with this cooperation. So I would like to conclude and saying that engineering expertise together with patients and medical expertise is of great importance, and together we can perform wonders, I would say. Me, myself, I'm a professor in dermatology, and I can say all my clinical research life, I've been collaborating very closely with Chalmers Technical University, Chalmers University of Technology, and Faculty of Science. And I must say this old one-liner that 1 + 1 adds up to 6 when doing this. Thank you so much, and I wish you good luck for these days.
Thank you very much, Anne-Marie. That was a great start, don't you think? It's really interesting to see already ongoing collaborations and initiatives in different parts. But there must be more areas, I guess. And today we have probably a lot of engineers or researchers in the audience who are not yet in collaboration with the hospital. So in which areas would you say that we need to do more, or where should we start collaborate? Do you have any ideas on that?
Yes, I think there are, you know, the sky's the limit here, I would say. You know, there are a number of fields and areas. The main thing is to get together, like a meeting like this, for example, and other matchmaking meetings. We've just recently started, me and Anders Schiltander, in quantum physics. Very interesting. Being a dermatologist, we also have collaboration, you know, looking at different moles. What are the, you can look a little bit into the skin, and you can decide really early if it's maybe a suspicious malignant melanoma or not. So I would say, and you have in mathematics, I know that Torbjörn Lund is engaged in this. So I think, you know, we have all these different fields, but we have to come together in order to find each other.
And hopefully this new area of advance will be able to support that interaction and to actually find those meeting places and create those together with you, Sahlgrenska Academy, and the region and everyone else around, including the companies we have.
I'm sure of this.
So thank you very much again for coming. We really appreciate it. So while having this event, you will see a lot of presentations by a lot of interesting and clever people, but we would also like to have some feedback from you and some interaction with you. So I should have said that already before Anne-Marie's talk, but there is an open chat for the YouTube channel, so feel free to phrase your questions there. We have Bo here in front supervising the YouTube chat, so he will be able to raise your questions if you have any. We would also like to extract some information from you while having this event, and for that purpose we also have a few Mentimeter questions. So I would like to go directly into the first one. It's quite simple. Either you go to menti.com or you go to downloading the app, which I did. I'm just looking for my phone. And then you simply have to tap this code, 6782787. And the first question that we would like to have answered today is what kind of collaboration you already have with other organizations in the Gothenburg area. So, in detail, do you currently have academic collaborations with any of the following? And then we can allow for many different options. I think we should wait with this image not to diverse the answers. So before we get to the results, so you will get some time to actually mark which of these organizations that you already have collaboration with, which is a good input for us when we are trying to create these matchmaking events that Anne-Marie already mentioned. But to give you some time, let me just briefly go through the program for the remainder of today. We should have had Ann-Sofie and Bo on stage already, but we will catch up, I'm sure. So soon you will see an introduction and an overview of the area of advance made by Ann-Sofie Kahns, our director, and Bo Norman, who is our senior strategic advisor. We will go a little bit more into depth and also hear from all the 5 great profile areas that we have to be presented by the profile leaders, or by some of the leaders. After that, we will have a block of 3 project presentations of ongoing projects coming from the joint call from all areas of advance, addressing challenges related to the COVID-19 pandemic. So that will be very interesting. We will round off with a discussion, including a panel, and I will introduce these people in a second, or when we get there, and then we will end with some final words by Ann-Sofie. So please remember, please provide us with the input that we need, and also raise your voice or phrase your questions through the YouTube chat. So now maybe we can go to looking at the results from the first question. So it's somewhat even. We have a little bit more collaboration perhaps with the hospital, but this is really good input to us. And I think you are many more behind the screen. So let's hope that we can get even more answers for our next question. Okay, enough from me for the moment. Now let's go into describing what the area of advance is really about. Invite Ann-Sofie and Bo to the stage to take over.
Good, thank you. Thank you, Martin. Yes, so it's a great pleasure and very exciting to finally introduce our new area of advanced health engineering. And we know that 2018, me and Ivan Mijakovic from biology was commissioned to answer the question, does Chalmers need a new area of advance within the area of health? And as you know, and many of you remember, we gathered a lot of researchers for a general assembly in fall 2018. We did a general survey among all the researchers. We did also appointed interviews with researchers at all the departments. And this was also followed up with individual profile workshops within different areas. And in parallel with this, we had a lot of dialogue with core partners such as GU, Sahlgrenska University Hospital, and the Academy. After collecting all the key responses, Chalmers could sum up and answer the question. So in the beginning of this year, we know that the decision was taken at yes. As all the leading international universities, we know are all active within the area of health, Chalmers will also open up for this. And in shaping this new area of advance, a lot of work has also come through the 11 profile leaders, which we see here, and who now has defined 5 profile areas. And these profile areas reflect current research going on at Chalmers, but they also reflect research that is needed to address a lot of the global challenges within health. And more of this is coming soon too. We will also hear the profile leaders talk about each of their area.
So health engineering is now part of the Chalmers family of areas of advance, together with energy, information and communication technology, material sciences, production and transport. And all of these areas of advance have the same sort of general goal, to be strategically address these complex challenges in society, to work with both multidisciplinary excellence and society relevance for sustainable development, to mobilize multidisciplinary research, education, and of course innovation, to be portals into Chalmers, and to work with strategic external collaborations. And we heard this morning from Anne-Marie, which is one of our sort of core external collaborators. And for health engineering, our goal is to respond to societal challenges by providing innovative technologies and solutions in medicine and health, in collaboration with our regional, national, and international partners. And we base this on these 5 profiles, which we'll hear more from. But we also see that there are 3 kind of core areas we work with. It's prevention, it's healthcare and systems, and it's diagnostics and treatment. And many of these, of course, have also come into play during the present COVID-19 pandemic. And this picture, which is hard to see all the details, of course, depicts some of the interactions within and between the different areas of advance. And we have, among other things, we have 4 important centers that are linked to this area of advance. We have Formula X, which is working with drug development, together mainly with AstraZeneca, but also other academic collaborators. We have Medtech West, working with medical technology, where, of course, the hospitals is a very important partners, and also some other regional universities. We have Center for Healthcare Improvement, which works with the mainly the organizational aspects, but also things like cancer treatment. And we have Center for Healthcare Architecture within the architecture part. And we hope, of course, that we will grow this flora of centers that are linked to and important for the health engineering areas. But these are some of the present and very important parts.
Exactly. So during the spring, we have now gathered the Health Engineering Leadership Organization, where Bo has been part all actually from the beginning start, and we also have the other people that you will have, be the people that you will contact in different matters. But in particular here, we want to welcome Martin Fagerström, who now this month, as you said, started as the Vice Director for our health engineering. And Martin, who comes from industrial materials science, is also the coordinator for sports technology here at Chalmers. But also for the area of advance, it's important to form connections, as Anne-Marie mentioned, to the clinical world to actually address the real challenges within health and healthcare. So we have also worked in close collaboration with what we call coordination group that are our core partners, and people in this group are represented both from the region. We have Jenny Almqvist from Region Development. We have Henrik Hagberg at the Sahlgrenska Academy, and we have Anders Hultander from the Sahlgrenska University Hospital, and Göran Hilmersson from Gothenburg University Faculty of Science. And the things that we discuss in this group is how can we increase collaboration between our organizations and academy and hospital. So some of the things that we have mentioned is actually the importance of an inventory of existing collaborations. This could be one way for us to actually build on things that already exist. For instance, for a joint PhD school, we're talking about also on the educational level, joint master thesis project fair, and also community building events, of course, within different areas. But this is a way also for us to figure out how to gather cutting-edge expertise for research proposals, and also to arrange joint seminar series. We're actually thinking about arranging plenary lectures together, and also, of course, lobbying common marketing of Gothenburg and the region to put Gothenburg on the map. So we have talked a lot about activities, but I want to highlight 3 specific events that actually are coming up that already have a date and a time set. And the first one, I think, some of you have seen an announcement coming out already, which will be an AI matchmaking event. So this is an event that's arranged between Chalmers, the center chair, and the core partner, Sahlgrenska University Hospital, and the academy and the region. So this is going to be held at September 23. It's going to be, because of the pandemic, a virtual meeting. And more announcements will come through our media news. There's announcements already at the Area Advance ICT. But the aim of this event is for researchers to connect specifically within the area of artificial intelligence and see how you can form new clusters between clinicians and engineers and come up and develop new solutions for healthcare systems. A second event is going to be a joint master thesis project fair. And this is an idea where we think that PIs can post master thesis projects for a larger pool of students. So gathering a pool of students from Chalmers, Sahlgrenska University Hospital, the Academy and GU, Natural Sciences, with the idea that maybe you can also start giving opportunities for projects, perhaps where two PIs from the clinical and the engineering side post project together, or perhaps post twin student projects where a PI might have a need for a student with clinical knowledge and together with a student with engineering background. And the third event that we actually now nailed the date for is the next initiative seminar, Engineering Health. And we know this actually occurred, the first Engineering Health initiatives, and now we are arranging for a third meeting, which is going to be in April 2021. And this is, of course, a joint effort. So for the program, we have, even though Chalmers is going to be the one hosting the next one, we have in the program group people from GU, Sahlgrenska Academy, University, the region, and some of our centers. And what can our new area of advanced health engineering do? Well, even though we have a limited budget, we want to focus on activities that can promote formation of new collaborations, forming new clusters. So there will be support that one can apply for continuously over the year for coordination of new, larger center applications, for instance. Also for advocacy and advisory work at the political level. There will be funding for workshops within profile areas to increase collaboration with external partners, and also seed grants. But because we are a new area of advance and we are in need to grow, I also want to stress that it's important for us to do follow-up work. So for us it's very important, for instance, that once our researchers publish within the area of health, we want to promote that you actually do note this at research.chalmers.se. And then also another important note is it's very important for us to know of your existing collaborations, because this is a way how we can actually grow on what we have and grow larger. So before the summer we sent out an inventory to all the researchers asking you to respond of your current research, current collaborations, and there will be a notification about a reminder about this coming up. Yes. I think that's all.
Thank you very
Yes.
much. Thank you
Yes.
for a great overview. We will move directly to the profile leaders, but just a quick question. So if I'm in the audience now, or behind my screen, and I have some great idea or I have some questions, what should I do? How do I approach us? So maybe a weird question to ask from me, but
Yes,
just to
exactly.
illustrate.
Yeah, it's a very good question, Martin. So you can approach any of us in the team, in the organization team, and we will, during the whole year, we will actually evaluate proposals in all different ways, anything that boosts collaboration and new cluster formation within health and technology.
Great.
Yes.
And please sign up for the newsletter. That's also a very good way of getting
Thank
the
you.
information, I think. So we will
Thanks.
send the board down to the chat, and we will start the presentation of the profile areas. So the first one out is digitalization, big data, and AI, to be presented by profile leader Professor Robert Feld. So please, Robert.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. So let's see if this works. So here are the profile areas, and I'll start with the one on the left, which is me and Rebecca, leading the one on digitalization, big data, and AI. So we all hear a lot about the hype about AI and machine learning today. So obviously there was a need for a profile that tries to focus Chalmers' efforts in this. But this profile is also a bit wider than this. Because as we've seen in the last, say, 20 to 30 years, digitalization is affecting all parts of society. And it's not only about the low-level algorithm or model or statistical model or machine learning method. It's also about a larger issue of how do we take such technological innovations and turn them into useful improvements. And of course, in this profile and in this area of advance, our focus is on improving the health and the treatment and diagnosis of patients. So when we looked at the resources available at Chalmers in this area, it's literally every department at Chalmers has some research, some activity that relates to digitalization in some form. So how can we build digital systems, software, and the technologies that really lead to better care and better health in society at large? Big data is, as a computer scientist, it's maybe not the most exact term, but it is used a lot. And the basic idea there is that as we gather more information and data and have different databases set up, we can use algorithms and mathematics and statistics and machine learning to find patterns, to analyze what is causing what are also correlations. Even when we don't know the science behind some specific pattern, we can still utilize potentially that pattern to improve patient healthcare. So big data can be about analyzing, finding connection between different features spread out in multiple different databases, for example. And of course, on a third point, we need new also basic science on new artificial intelligence and machine learning and statistical methods. How do we actually analyze this, many different data sources? I would say the focus right now is on a single data source and building some model on a few features of the data. But in the future, we need to take both pictures, video, audio recordings, and other features about the patient and use that to improve diagnosis and treatment and so on. So we see this as a very important profile that can need to gather a lot of different knowledge around Chalmers. And the vision then for this profile is to improve health and care, of course, by gathering these different Chalmers resources and combining them, right? So, as I said, we need new algorithms, new technical, low-level methods to analyze this patient and healthcare data. That's an obvious one. But we also need ways of applying these basic new technologies and integrating them into real use in complex socio-technical systems of care. It's not only about the technology. We also need that to affect the processes. But we also need to collaborate with other profiles about how do we design the interfaces to make this actually useful for doctors and nurses and patients. And we also need to understand processes to introduce these technologies so that the big potential we all see can be realized. Some research topics, there are so many, but just to mention a few, is of course improving deep neural nets and machine learning and statistical analysis methods. How do we apply it better to images of knees, hearts, and so on, and brains even, but also using electronic health records, genetic and other bioinformation. Implementation and actually getting digital innovation from this, using these databases to find new, better scientific models, and then putting it together in decision support for both pre-hospital care, in-hospital care, and when patients leave hospital care. So, thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's move directly to the second presentation of the Profile Prevention, Lifestyle and Ergonomics. And this one will be presented by the dynamic duo, the two profile leaders, Associate Professor Cecilia Berlin and Professor Rickard Landberg. Please.
Thank you. Since this is the prevention profile, we're being very conspicuous about disinfecting of our hands. All right, so this profile is about a variety of aspects having to do with staying healthy outside of the patient's perspective. So a lot of this is about what people in general can do and have control over in order to maintain good health and maintain good conditions for being able to work and function in the long term. So we support the area of advance with a salutogenic perspective, thinking a lot about what can users of technologies and what can already healthy people or people recovering from illness do to maintain their health. So we cover promotion of good health, particularly via lifestyle choices and using both strategies and technologies to stay healthy. We're looking at prevention of diseases and ill health, both the communicable and non-communicable type. And also, this is my home area, ergonomics, which is a lot about creating good conditions for people to perform at a job or at any type of activity in a safe and productive manner. And this, of course, touches on a lot of other aspects of work safety and usability of different technologies and sustainability in general. And overall, we see that there is great potential to also address the non-clinical, non-hospital side with the different disciplines we have at Chalmers to strengthen health in a universal perspective. Okay. So our profile vision is pretty ambitious and pretty broad and also covers a lot of different disciplines, which is why we're both here to present it. We want to aim towards knowledge that gives us a future society that is free of disease, injuries, pain, discomfort, and impairments to ability or performance. Yes, that sounds super ambitious, but that's where we want to be. Obviously, a vision has to aim for something that is really attractive and really hard to get. And we want to enable this from the Chalmers perspective, at least, by creating and facilitating different approaches and technologies that can help minimize and mitigate threats to health and well-being, and also by supporting things individuals can do, strategies and practices that make it possible for people to retain their good health in all sorts of situations where they engage with their life. So it's both in the family perspective and in the work perspective and out in society. And as we've noticed now during this past year, this is very much something where we need to think holistically. And we want to do this for a sustainable humanity, one that doesn't burn out, one that doesn't get permanently injured or permanently incapacitated. As we have seen recently, there is a lot of good reasons to stay focused on what will keep me healthy in the long run.
Yes, our vision is very ambitious and the problems are large, but there is also tremendous opportunities. And many of the diseases, the major killers in the world, like the non-communicable diseases, they are actually preventable. And lifestyle is one of the most important modifiable risk factors of these conditions, such as cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and even some cancers. So there is a great possibility here, actually, an opportunity to use lifestyle as a way to prevent and mitigate these conditions. And that is one of the examples of the research areas that we are dealing with here. And particularly the role of diet and physical activity as major parts of lifestyle for prevention of non-communicable diseases. And that covers all the perspectives from personalized nutrition, personalized medicine, all the way to a community level perspective, and also through large population-based studies. We have also another perspective, which is the health perspectives of workplaces, cities, and home environments, going back to the area which is your area on ergonomics, and also health perspectives of hazardous chemicals, air, water, and ground pollution. So these are three main research areas covering, as mentioned, the perspectives from the individuals up to society.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on, we will now listen to Senior Lecturer Andreas Hellström, who will present the profile area Systems and Built Environments for Health and Care. Please.
Thank you. My name is Andreas Hellström. I'm a researcher from Technology Management and Economics, and I'm also involved in the Center for Healthcare Improvement. I co-lead this profile together with Johanna Eriksson from the Department of Architecture and Civil Engineering, and she's also involved in the Center for Healthcare Architecture. So with these two centers as a base, with this long tradition of collaboration with different healthcare providers, Sahlgrenska University Hospital, other hospitals within the region, and also the region Västra Götaland, we have this as a basis for this further development. We want to include and combine engineering, architecture, urban planning, organization and management in new integrated ways. We often find ourselves working in the whole care continuum, from health promotion and prevention, and also a lot with hospital and primary care, but also rehabilitation, palliative care, and chronic conditions. Here are some potential research themes that we would like to further develop and specify together with practice and also the other researchers here at Chalmers. We believe there is a need to think about the designs of systems and environment and how that this can be better fulfill the needs of the citizens, the patients, and the society. Often, to do that, we need to involve the whole system. So we need a systems approach, working with many new stakeholders. Another theme that we realize also that we need to figure out ways how to drive innovation in healthcare, and also how to accelerate implementation of existing solutions. A lot of the things that Anne-Marie Wennberg previously mentioned. Because this is actually a sustainability issue for the healthcare systems. To give some concrete examples, we have some projects and collaborations where we work within existing systems, how to work with better logistics and more appropriate design of organizations. We have projects regarding how to go from sick care to health. This is, of course, also a sustainability issue, how to work with people before they become sick, but also how to deal with chronic conditions. In many of our research projects, we have active collaboration of patients and citizens. That can be, for example, self-care and self-monitoring, but also how patients can drive social innovation. We just recently launched a new Vinnova project where we gathered what we call patient innovators, people with chronic conditions and long-term conditions, and how they can act as innovators for their own and others' health. We also work with quality and efficiency of the physical environment. Center for Healthcare Architecture were quite early in labeling this as evidence-based design and how we can do research on evidence-based architecture. That also involves the planning processes of the construction, which also is an example of how many different stakeholders must be in place early in the construction projects. Another theme is also transformation or change management within healthcare. Examples of that is that long collaboration with Regional Cancer Center, how we can create a more patient-oriented and better integrated cancer care. This is also one example on how physicians can act as leaders of development and innovation. From the whole continuum, from health promotion, screening, diagnostics, treatment, and hopefully rehabilitation, but also palliative care. This fall, we will start a pilot course in this TRACS program, a new program here at Chalmers, where we collaborate between Center for Healthcare Improvement, Center for Healthcare Architecture, and Biomedical Engineering. would like to have, where we will have Chalmers students from many different master's programs working together to try to solve real cases within the healthcare system. So that we are really looking forward to that. So we would like to continue this tradition of needs-oriented and multidisciplinary research and define that further together with policymakers and managers and physicians, nurses, and all various stakeholders within the system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andreas. All right, our fourth presentation will be by Professor Fredrik Westerlund, who will present the profile on infection, drug delivery, and diagnostics.
Thank you. So I'm here to present the infection, drug delivery, and diagnostics profile. I'm Fredrik Westerlund from the Biology and Biological Engineering Department. I'm running this profile with Professor Fredrik Höök from the Physics Department on, of course, a very hot topic these days, on infections, drug delivery, and diagnostics. So we want to look at these somewhat interconnected words in this profile. So we start with infections. We want to know why they occur, and this can be on the molecular mechanisms that causing diseases by viruses and bacteria, all the way to how can a hospital room be designed to prevent infections. The diagnostics perspective is, of course, important for the infections, but also across the healthcare sector for cancer diagnostics, and we think that we can use engineering tools to develop new diagnostics. And for infections, we're also interested in treating these infections. This can be by understanding how and why drugs that are already available work and how we can use them in new treatments, but also developing new drugs. In the drug delivery part, which is of course related to treating infections, we are interested in designing new drug delivery systems for targeted, smart, and personalized medicine. And as you can hear, many words are repeated among the profiles. There's also, of course, a large connection between the profiles. So the vision of the profile is to provide modern engineering solutions for the healthcare sector on these three topics, interconnected topics, including modern diagnostics that is faster, cheaper, simpler, and more correct or more efficient than existing techniques. And we think that this an engineering university is the right place to do this, in particular with a close collaboration with the hospital. And on the drug delivery part, it's both the actual drugs, but also maybe equally important is drug formulations that take the drugs to the correct place in the body, which will then lead to more efficient treatment, but also less side effects. And since I'm from the molecular side, I tend to talk most about these parts, but it's of course equally important with the perspective that Andreas just addressed with healthcare facilities that can help prevent spreading of infectious bacteria and spreading of bacteria in the environment and things like this. I want to finish by just giving three research topics that are related to this profile. The first one is my own favorite topic, antibiotic resistance, which is, of course, closely related to infections, but there's a lot of research ongoing at Chalmers on diagnostic techniques for this, new materials. Maybe you saw about the new COVID masks that are planning to work on in the chemistry department, but also, again, the hospital environments. There are several spin-offs on this antibiotic resistance at Chalmers already existing. Gene therapy related to the Formula X consortium, for example, that Bo and Anne-Sophie introduced. This is a very large research center together with AstraZeneca to get new gene therapy drugs to the right place in the body. I don't think I need to introduce COVID-19, and you will hear a lot more about that in the upcoming presentations, but Chalmers is, of course, heavily involved in this with diagnostics, vaccines, drugs, and so on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fredrik. Okay, time for our final profile. So last but definitely not least, we have the profile of medical engineering to be presented by Associate Professor Hanna Dobczyk-Trefna. Please.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I will present the last cluster or topic, profile, medical engineering, that I'm running together with Torbjörn Lund and Mikael Persson. And this profile will address development of new technologies that provide more efficient patient care and more efficient care for healthcare sector. And medical technology is already a big sector in Sweden and in worldwide. And we just want to advance the research going on and make a next step towards the technologies that will enable the patient to participate more on her own diagnosis, monitoring and treatment, and to support the development of new high-tech solutions that will have a key role to improving both the highly specialized care and the distributed care. Medical engineering has a long history here in Gothenburg, and the collaboration between Chalmers University of Technology and Sahlgrenska University Hospital and Sahlgrenska Academy has already shown a lot of breakthrough developments that has been commercialized, and here you can see a few of the recent products that are already available for the patient. So our profile vision is to contribute to sustainable healthcare by continuing and strengthening the...
And slide.
Yeah, sorry?
And slide.
Ah, okay. Sorry. The collaboration. Because if we need in order to create a successful product, you need to have understanding of the problem, and that's what you get by the expert from the healthcare. We would like to further expanding the portfolio of the project in biomedical engineering and facilitating faster transition of research and innovation to clinical use. And this is very challenging with the new MDR directive that is actually foreseen to be a major hinder in getting the products and innovation into use. And we want to continue building networks and interaction to trust between academia, industry, and the healthcare sector. The current activities in the profile, we are very exciting to start a new engineering program next week that attracted lots of applicants. So there will be 60 students who will become health professionals in the near future, and will head the development of the new devices. What is unique with this program is that it is run together with Sahlgrenska Academy, and in many courses the Sahlgrenska Academy is the grant, so it is a very tight program, and that is believed that why this program has been so attractive. It will be a program where we have a majority of female students, which is also very successful in the engineering school. Another educational program is the joint graduate school, when the pair of PhD students, one from technology side and one from medical side, will perform the research together and will graduate in both disciplines. And again, there are first 2 students who has been enrolled to the project, the SCAPIS project that was already mentioned earlier. Another possibility how to strengthen the interaction is the Regional Research and Innovation Platform that is supported by the region of Västra Götaland. That program enables the employees at the hospital to take part in even innovation. So that's from the other side, the Chalmers part. And the Medtech West has been a successful platform for interactions, celebrated 10 years this year. And it was a common meeting place, or it has been, and it is still. And we will, with the profile, use the knowledge earned by them. But what I would like to highlight is the laboratory that has been being built in a Boyk Center. So that's in the middle of the hospital, in the most high-tech building that the hospital has. We will have a small island, an island because it will be shielded both from magnetic and electric field, so it's quite a unique space. In the lab, in this laboratory, we will be able to perform the clinical trials with the devices developed in the collaboration. And once upon a time, I've been told that if you want to, the most efficient way to make enemies at the hospital is to ask for space. So now we have the space at the hospital. So anyone who is interested and need a space for the research, you're just welcome to take part of this space. So with this, I would like to thank you.
Thank you very much, Hanna. So that was all the 5 profiles. Anders was very quick, by the way, to second your statement there about difficulties in finding space. So we can probably trust that very well. I said at the beginning that we would take your questions, and even though we maybe are a few minutes behind, do we have any questions from the chat? Nothing so far? Okay, please use that opportunity if you want to raise any questions to us or to any of the project presentations that will come soon. But to wake you all up a bit and to get some more info from you, we have our second question. Now you've heard the presentation about the area of advance as a whole, and also the 5, as I think, very exciting profiles. We would like to know where you feel that you fit in. So the question is rather simple. Which of the profile areas do you feel connected to? And please note that you can have several answers, several options that you can choose. So I just reflected while listening to all the profile areas here that I think that's part of what makes this area of advance so exciting, that we have a very wide spread over Chalmers with a lot of high-tech engineering research, sort of focusing on one unifying purpose in terms of improving health and well-being. So I think that's really a strength for this area of advance, and I hope you agree and that you will join in our efforts. So we will wait a few more seconds before we look at the results. And in the meantime, I would just like to draw your attention to an open call that if you have missed it, you should really have a look. It was opened some 2 weeks ago, and it's the Kamprad Family Foundation that is now looking for calls for projects for improving the quality of life for elderly people. And it's a pretty short deadline, so the first deadline is already 15th of September, but you're only asked to supply a 4-page project description and sort of execution plan at that time. So please take that opportunity if you're working in research-related to those areas. What do you say, Torbjörn? Do we need to wait more, or can we have a look at the results, you think? So we can have a look and see how we spread over the different profile areas. So it's not bad. It's a pretty good distribution. As Robert said, a lot of researchers at Chalmers now sort of connect the digitalization in one way or another, so maybe that explains a little bit why this is high, but it's really nice to see that it's widely represented for all areas, and also that the number of answers is much higher for this question. Okay, let's move on. So the next block will be presentations on 3 different projects that have been granted in the open call that the different areas of advance had addressing challenges related to COVID-19. And I don't have the slide of the different presentations, but we will start with Florian David, who will join us via Zoom. He is assistant professor at biology and biological engineering, and he will talk to us about a novel drug discovery platform that can be used to discover how drugs possibly can inhibit the coronavirus to enter our bodies. So, Florian, do you hear me? Maybe you have to unmute your microphone.
Yes, so yeah, I can hear you. Let me just start sharing my screen here.
Yes.
So this is this, and then I have to go to the slideshow, present the view.
Wonderful, perfect.
Okay, here we go. You can see the screen, and maybe you can also see me now. Make it a bit more personal. Okay, yeah, great. So yeah, thanks for the introduction. So my name is Florian David, and I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Biology and Biological Engineering / Division of Systems and Synthetic Biology. And the focus of my research, we termed it kind of medical biotechnology, and this also includes drug discovery and production, actually. So thanks to the organizers for the opportunity to present some kind of let's call it an initial project idea we have here. And we recently got some kind of initial kickoff funding from the area of advance to start some activities in this area of peptide discovery, specifically targeting corona infection. So we are at the moment also in the process to apply for additional funding to really kind of realize this research I want to introduce to you in the coming slides. The presentation will be kind of high level, just to give you an idea what we are aiming at and what is also the motivation we are having here in the research. So let's start with the basics. So current research has actually established quite well that the binding of the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein, so the virus is actually binding to the human ACE2 receptor on human cells. And this is the first step of viral entry into human cells. And this receptor can actually be found on all kinds of human cells, lungs, kidney, heart, but also intestine, and is normally involved in regulating the blood pressure. And in the recent month, there was actually a lot of research published around this, and this is, I think, a big, let's call it, advantage of these times now that there's so much amazing research published these days, especially around the interaction of the spike protein with the receptor. So starting with the crystal structure of these interactions, then sequence function relationship. So what kind of makes the spike bind very closely to this ACE2 domain, but also looking at, for instance, different species who have also different ACE2 receptors, and then are, for instance, also less susceptible to the virus. And blocking this interaction is a prime target for a lot of efforts around the globe. And some of these efforts are really focused on finding neutralizing antibodies. And there's a lot of research groups doing that, but also pharmaceutical companies announcing now their first trials and successes with this. And how this works is that actually these antibodies are kind of monoclonal. They're generated, binding specifically to the spike protein, and thereby inhibiting the interaction with the ACE2 receptor. But with this strategy, actually some concerns have already raised and kind of published as well, that if you have a very specific antibody present, the virus might actually adapt and mutate to evade these antibodies and makes them kind of less effective in the long run. And this is why it's actually discussed now quite a lot in these articles that the best way to go is probably treatment cocktails. So you have actually various complementary drugs in these cocktails directed at different targets of the viral spike protein to kind of release the pressure on this virus to mutate and to adapt. So this is also, yeah, why a lot of people in general or researchers looking at complementary approaches and new drugs to do that. And we are also decided to go down this route. And this is a molecule we or our researchers actually focused on. And we're focusing actually on cyclic peptides. And these consist of a small number of amino acids, so like around 5 to 15. And these kind of cyclic peptides form very stable ring structures. And this conformation creates a rigid structure, which allows them actually to target also very complex and shallow protein-protein interaction surfaces. And at the same time, they display a very high affinity in the nanomolar range, which is actually similar to antibodies, which are also developed. Speaking about antibodies and comparing them with each other, cyclic peptides actually have several advantages. And the first advantage comes with their low molecular weight. Due to this weight, they have very attractive pharmacokinetics. So they're, for instance, very proteolytic stable. And they can also enable tissue penetration. So they can go into the tissue where antibodies stay outside because they are kind of, I think they're around 100 times bigger than actually the peptides. Also, there's less risk for immunogenic reaction, or also this antibody-dependent enhancements of disease, which is also discussed in recent literature, actually. In addition, they also can be formulated quite efficiently, which is also an advantage. So you have to actually apply only a kind of less absolute amount to get an effect because they're so small. And this is also why they can be used, for instance, as inhalable drugs. So you could picture to inhale these cyclic peptides and directly deliver them through the lungs to the body. And then the third part, comparing to antibodies, the production costs are also much lower. So some of these cyclic peptides can actually be easily be scaled in terms of production because this can be done via chemical synthesis. So in our research group, we are actually focusing on producing these cyclic peptides and at the same time selecting for potent peptides. And we do this by using Baker's yeast Saccharomyces cerevisiae. And Baker's yeast is actually a well-studied synthetic biology organism. And it's also a eukaryotic model organism for human diseases. So including, for instance, Alzheimer's, for aging, or even cancer. So as you might know, many groundbreaking research was done with yeast in itself. Lots of discoveries around the biology, but also connected to disease, and a lot of Nobel Prizes actually also in connection to Saccharomyces cerevisiae. So yeast is actually more similar to humans than we think, and this is what we actually exploit within our drug discovery platform. So you could picture if you produce something in yeast, which is actually toxic in yeast, the yeast will not survive. And this is also a big benefit in the drug discovery process because kind of toxic molecules in terms of drugs are pre-selected against from the beginning and they will not show up in later screenings. So in addition, Baker's yeast is also a very established industrial host, production host organism. So it's actually $1 billion market was created through this little organism. For instance, when you think in terms of insulin production, but also viral vaccines. So we use yeast in our research group for drug production, but also drug discovery. And how do we do that? So this is a very simple sketch here. The yeast is able to kind of produce a cyclic peptide, and at the same time, we can screen for peptides which have an active, potent function inhibiting a protein-protein interaction. So this is what we call here the intracellular biosensor. So just to make it very simple, in case a yeast cell is producing a peptide which is potent and has a kind of a drug function, the yeast cell will create a green signal, a fluorescence protein is expressed, and the yeast cell turns green. So why is this good? What do we do with this? So this enables us actually to screen millions of variants of these cells. So millions of cells producing millions of different peptides. And then we can pick the one, the yeast cell, which is turning green and potentially producing a potent peptide. And this is how we do this. So you can screen actually millions of these cells in high throughput, like let's say in a week, and analyze them via fluorescence activated cell sorting. Then go for next generation sequencing. So you sequence the peptide coding part, and then take these hits further. Let's say go for in vitro assays, and then move down the hit to development pipeline. So the big benefit using this pipeline is that we're doing an in vivo selection from the start. So we're taking, as I've mentioned before, the drug toxicity into account. So only the yeast cell survives, which is not producing a toxic peptide. And in addition, using this intracellular biosensor, we're only selecting for function and not only for binding. So actually other assays people or researchers do are so-called phage displays, and there the first screening round is actually only for binding and not necessarily for function, and we have actually this function screen in here as well. So just to also give you kind of an outlook where we are with this. So this project is more actually a platform project, which is at the moment funded by Vinnova and AstraZeneca. And we're focusing here on disease-relevant interaction of cellular proteins. And we're now kind of looking for funding to build on this platform technology and open a novel track aiming to find cyclic peptides specifically inhibiting SARS-CoV-2 spike protein binding to the ACE2 receptor, what I introduced you in the beginning too. So the idea here is to establish a drug discovery platform for antiviral cyclic peptides in the long run, and eventually also provide a complementary treatment option to antibody therapies in the format of cyclic peptides as we select for here. This brings me to the acknowledgements. So I would like to thank the researchers and co-PIs involved in this project, and also in related research to this, and of course the supporting funding organizations. And yeah, feel free also to contact me in terms of, in case you have questions or for collaboration. And thanks again for the opportunity here today to give a little bit of an overview of what we're aiming at. And yeah, happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Florian. I think we have a question from the chat, or a question from Bo.
Yes, and that's a question that relates to the forthcoming presentations from both Torbjörn and Robert, and that is how to deal with the fact that when we're working with patient data, how do we work with the privacy and secrecy question? Because I know that has been a part of the challenges. So that's a question that I hope that Torbjörn and Robert will be able to answer.
So, good introduction then. So we move on to the second project presentation by Professor Torbjörn Lund, professor at Mathematical Sciences, and you will talk about prediction of the need for hospital care related to COVID-19.
Thank you, Martin, and thanks everyone else for letting me talk about this and being able to have this project. So just want to introduce my friend here and collaborator Philip Gerle in the picture as well, so you see what he looks like. And it all started in March 26th when I got a mail here from Sahlgrenska via VGR, and it was they needed someone who like to talk and have second opinion about different models, and maybe there's someone who can do that. And Of course, this is a real need. I like that. I love those real needs, and there's something that you can actually do. And those days in March, everyone was really worried about what was going to happen here. That, together with this picture Anne-Marie showed before, that we have it in our genes that we should work together, because that was the will of William Chalmers. So we set up a meeting rather quickly, and just to answer a little bit of the question we just got here, these meetings are usually not on Zoom because it's sensitive data, so we have to actually meet in person sometimes when we talk about real things. So this is now the first dialogue that we were asked, what do you think about the Icelandic model? Because people have been really working quickly, and some governments were really open about their models in the beginning. And this was a model that was based on something that I won't discuss now, but we then asked them, what do you really want to know? Because that's usually the best thing to start with. Prediction of number of needed beds in the intensive care per day. Okay, how far ahead do you want to have this estimate? About a week? Well, that's a challenge. But we also want to know how large and when the peak will appear, the peak of the number of beds needed in the intensive care, for obvious reasons. This was everything, or a lot of things that were focusing on that, catastrophic scenario when the beds will not be enough at that time. So that is, of course, in focus. Okay, so when do you need a model like this? Last week. And then I went around and gave them some overhead plastics instead. So I stole everything in the math department. We have a lot of overheads there, or not anymore, the plastics at least. So modeling is something that I've been really interested in together with Philip, and we've written a book about that. There are so many different ways you can view this. What should we use here? I mean, forecast versus understanding. Should we really try to understand the model, top or bottom, machine learning, maybe agent-based? So agent-based is when you can program different organisms running around in the computer, and they can represent different persons in real life walking around in the city. And actually, at that point, I already done something together with Claes Andersson, someone else here at Chalmers, so working in complex analysis or complex systems analysis. Complex analysis is something different in mathematics, at least. Complex systems, and that we created an agent-based model that we can test a lot of different things. We can change the behavior, compare different countries with different age structures, but also how you interact with your grandparents in Italy versus in Sweden. And you can also try this thing that were introduced in the so-called imperial model, where they talked about the hammer and the dance, when you actively close down very carefully and very hard, and then you open up and you keep on controlling like that. And that their paper in this agent-based model got so much credit and was then probably very much influenced the new strategy that England took at that time. So it turned out to be very political and sensitive, all this, and we were also part of that, trying to point out that models are not that straightforward. Because in this sense, if I go back one here, that this sense of the agent-based, you can get really precise and really interesting dynamics with, really excellent, good numbers, but they are just guesses and very weak guesses. So you can get fooled by the exactness and the complexity. So that was another debate article in Ny Teknik, where the most fun part was that one of the illustrations was actually a code. So that's not usual in debate articles to have code, but those were the days. So we went back to try to help out, of course, because I was in a hurry, so we used an ordinary differential equation, and that is a very old one, almost 100 years old, called SIR, that almost every student has seen in Chalmers, I think, in different viewpoints. So it's coupled three different ordinary differential equations, you can see here, and you get different curves for if you are infectious and recovered. This is called then the compartment models. Very classical, we added in one extra compartment, not very unusual to have these also exposed individuals. And we also made time dependent of beta, the constant that we made to be variables, because people changed their behavior when they realized the severity of this. And it's also that it actually went to Sweden, or Stockholm in the first place, which is part of Sweden. And we did some, Bayesian stuff there as well, and also time series analysis. But I just want to, the last point here is that then they started to use our model, and that was a really great feeling. I mean, it's very sad in that sense when you talk about it, but still, it's not so usual that we have the luxury to be useful and needed in that, sense of being urgent. In mathematics, usually you think like 100 years ahead. Maybe some of the stuff I do might get used, except for when it comes to teaching. That is always, of course, serious and necessary. So that was a very strange and really good feeling, and this is what it looks like. So we changed parameter space, and we moved around and solved these equations over and over again in an iterative system. So it's kind of computational heavy, but still we got some estimates that could be worked on. So I was a part of organizing another meeting, because that was really hot in June here, not only the weather, but it was a hot topic, of course. What will now happen when we cannot pass the peak? Because that will be a completely different situation. So we gathered a national meeting, and that was really interesting, a lot of different people really trying to work together. So the kind of also new feeling, people didn't really care too much about this, getting out the next publication, but instead, how can we help the whole country in the best way possible? So this is what we've been working with now, the tail, the end of this mountain that we see. It looks, rather good right now, even though there's strategies behind the curve, of course. And we keep on with this ODE model, and we are using now input data to better model these parameters, really trying to monitor them by using, or this is what we want to do, this is under construction, Västtrafik data from trams and buses, 1177, the calls, clinical tests, and sewage. And so when talking about these outlets of water from the houses, we were able to, just last week, to get some data. This is the first time it's been shown, so don't look too closely. It's not official yet. But it's a cue for the amount of virus in the sewage. And as I said, work on progress, and it started with a workshop. We started to talk more about with Robert and Marina, who is not going to be on stage, but as you can see, Robert is displayed there extra. He's been up on stage, and he will come back here in a minute, so all lights on him. And also we want to thank the really nice and friendly people there at SU with Ingrid Fritzell, Julia Karlsson, Thomas Brezicka, and Helen Norder. She's the one with the sewage data. That we think that it can be really interesting to work all together to get control of what's happening in the tail. Thank you.
Thank you, Torbjörn. I really appreciate the quote that all models are wrong, but some are useful. So what made your model, what took your model to use? Were there any hurdles that you had to pass, or was it the urgency of COVID-19 that actually got the model from your research desk into being used for healthcare prediction?
Yeah, so this is really interesting. So the usual way we do research is we try to look at our last paper, and then we see what can we do, what's the next logical question. So this paper, or this manuscript, that we decided not to publish because there was too many of these out there, and they were misused so heavily, so we didn't want to add to that. So it's not being just putting out the next logical paper, but instead we went back to the basics, because things were so, you have to be really quick about it, and it's too costly to make mistakes, but also the data was too sparse. We couldn't use any more sophisticated stuff, and especially not any artificial intelligence or any machine learning at that point. This was still in March.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the third project. So, Robert, welcome back on stage.
Thank you.
As Torbjörn already announced, it's sort of a linked project in a way, more aiming at decision support for health needs related to COVID-19. Please, Robert.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the pointers also there, Torbjörn. So I think this project is clearly related to the previous one. My presentation will be maybe even more high level because we're not allowed to show a lot of this yet. So that's also an interesting dynamic during COVID-19, and I guess an answer to your question, Bo, that in some sense COVID-19 has made a lot of new research and collaboration possible, but in some sense for some of these work we're also waiting for the sort of ethical approvals to really make some of it more publicly open. But I'm here since I was here anyway to present the profile, but there are many people involved in this project. In particular, I want to mention Marina Axelsson-Fisk at Mathematics here at Chalmers and my colleague Richard Torker. But in particular, this is in some sense more of a bottom-up approach than Torbjörn presented. So in Torbjörn's case, Sahlgrenska came to Chalmers and to Torbjörn and Philip and asked, can you help us with this? In our case, we had this ongoing collaboration with Lars Magnus Andersson, who is the head physician at infectious diseases in Östra sjukhuset, where we have been looking at doing decision support systems for severe infectious diseases. So we had previously focused on sepsis, which is blodförgiftning in Swedish, and creating a system that can help because sepsis is a very severe condition. So basically you can get into the ICU unit in Östra sjukhuset showing mild symptoms. It could look like a normal infection, like almost like a normal flu, and then 4 hours later you can be dead actually. So sepsis is a very serious condition. And in our project, we were focusing on can we support physicians and nurses in handling these type of patients, and in particular, how can we have a system that makes a difference? So we used sepsis, blodförgiftning, as a difficult case, and then we were trying to gather data on viral gastroenteritis, which is vinterkräksjuka, which is a much less severe condition. And we wanted a system that can make a difference there. But we have had this collaboration for long, but it's hard to find the relevant data in a large amount that many of these techniques need. So Lars Magnus then, during the spring, from a bottom-up perspective, connected us to Magnus Kjellberg, who is at the Center for Digital Health in VGR-SU. And COVID-19 made it possible for us to get data much more, higher amounts, because it was such an urgent need. So that was the sort of bottom-up perspective. So our project vision for this project is really to build something like the Star Trek tricorder. So maybe some of you are Star Trek fans and you've seen this. So basically there's a small device with a lot of computation in it that you can use if you're a Star Trek captain or a member of the crew. And if someone shows symptoms of some kind of medical condition, you can hold this device in front of the patient and it will help you diagnose and propose treatment. So basically that's what we want to build. Of course, we anticipate it will take a little bit longer than the 6 months project we have here. But this is the vision, really. So we want a continuous system, an automated decision support system for medical staff in longitudinal diagnosis. So it's not a single point in time where we use the system, get some kind of direction, and then we go on with our normal treatment. So kind of the unique feature here is that you're going to go back and sort of improve your decision support as you gather more information about this specific patient. And as I said, our focus was on sepsis and vinterkräksjuka, viral gastroenteritis, but COVID data we could get more of and faster. So that's why we now focus on that as a case. So how is this project and collaboration unique? Well, current AI or machine learning in medicine research often looks like this. You have some collaboration with the hospital, you get some relevant data, and then you build some AI, machine learning, statistical model, and you get something out of it, saying, yes, it is a tumor, it is a malignant melanoma, or it is COVID-19 or not. But in reality, that's not the situation where the physicians are in. So they typically have a lot of different data sources, not only specific to that disease, and they have many other diagnoses that are possible, not only like a yes and no for one particular disease. So we are focused on this kind of setting, when you're not yet sure what kind of diagnosis you're looking at, what kind of problem you're looking at. So it could be from very severe problems like sepsis, down to fairly severe like COVID-19 can be for some patients, down to very insevere and mild conditions. Also, something unique is that we are going to propose actions and treatments. So it's not just kind of an initial help and classification system. It's also about how do we, what should we actually do in this case? And then, very importantly, when we treat a patient, we will sort of consult the system and get more data about the patient as we go along. And this then proposes a certain type of algorithms and mathematical structures, which Marina is an expert on, Markov decision processes and reinforcement learning, where you have to retake the decision continuously. So that's what our focus is here. But now we're focused in this particular short project, seed project, on the near term is COVID-19. So how can we support COVID-19? So it's not simply about, of course it's super important for the physicians and for VGR and SU in general, Sahlgrenska, to know how many beds do we need. This is needed for planning, to know how many staff will be there and so on. But, of course, the more severe cases are the ones that will take on the most resources. So, for example, the next step, after knowing this is COVID-19 or not, how many days can we expect this particular patient to stay in our system? And what are we going to do to this particular patient during this stay here? So it's longitudinal. And we're going to look at fairly new algorithms in this sense, so Markov decision processes, reinforcement learning, but also how can we make simple versions of these fairly complex models that can be interpreted and understood by the physicians and nurses and staff. A nice thing that the area of advanced already has made happen is the collaboration with Torbjörn Philip and others at Chalmers. So we are now doing a comparison of many different models for the prediction of beds and ICU admissions in the region. And by being many researchers and having a larger collaboration, we can investigate many more models and having many more data sources than what is normally done. So hopefully this will be a fairly large-scale collaboration in the region where we can show some interesting results. Of course, in our project, we also need visualization. So it's not simply about giving a yes or no or some kind of severity. How do we present this to the staff so that they can continuously treat based on this system? So the side effects that we've mentioned, collaboration with Torbjörn and Philip and others on predicting the inflow. So also I want to mention Wilhelm Verendel and the data science engineers at Chalmers. They are great and have a lot of experience in working with large data sets and building models. So they will also be involved. So new beds coming into the ICU, but also we want to do ablation studies. So this is when you take out some of the data sources you have to quantify what are the most important data to take this specific decision. And then longer term, of course, when we've done this for COVID-19, we want to generalize so that it becomes a general system for infectious diseases. Of course, it could be generalized then to other diseases than infectious ones, hopefully, but that's further into the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. I was thinking about one thing. So you present a lot of opportunities, right? But do you dare to say anything about what are the major hurdles or obstacles that you have to sort of pass or to succeed in this endeavor?
Right. I mean, yeah, there are many challenges. Politics is one, but maybe not the major one. So I think actually getting, you know, the legal and ethical aspects are very important, actually. I mean, we need to, even though COVID-19 is a very urgent need right now, we need models now on the floor, so to speak. There are also many threats with digital technologies like this, and we need to also consider that, right? So I do think that I wouldn't call it hurdles, because I think it should be a hurdle in the sense of a challenge, but I think this sort of dampens a little bit how quickly you can go into practice, and maybe for the right reasons. So, yeah.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Surprisingly enough, we are more or less on time. I didn't expect that. But we will now move over to summarizing a little bit more what we have seen presented here today. So I would like to invite to the stage Jenny Almqvist, Regional Developer at Region Västra Götaland, and Anders Thunder, Associate Professor of Surgery and also Strategist in Life Science at Sahlgrenska University Hospital. And we have COVID-safe microphones here, so you can pick one each. So both these two are members of the coordination group that Ann-Sofie mentioned before, helping us, and they have already helped us a lot to shape this area of advance, and we will continue to developing this. So we're really happy that you are here, but we also have a third member on Zoom. So let's see if we can get the face of Christian Samuelsson also. Christian is professor in orthopedic surgery at Sahlgrenska Academy, and he's also an active surgeon at the hospital. And I know that he's extremely enthusiastic with all the opportunities to collaborate with us here at Chalmers. So that was a good purpose of inviting him here to hear his reflections as well. But let's see, while he is connecting, maybe we can start with you, Anders. Since you were the first one here this morning, you have had the longest time to reflect. So what are your thoughts or reflections from what you have seen here today?
How much time do I have?
Well, we should end by 12, and we should get Ann-Sofie some last words.
All right, trying just a short summary. I must say my expectations were very high when I entered this presentation or this event, but now I must admit those expectations are even higher. I'm very much inspired by what I've heard here from the profile leaders, very much. And why is that? Well, that's because of what Ann-Marie Wennberg already presented in her introductory talk. We have now a lot of challenges, or a shovel is a shovel, I would say problems actually, that we are facing now. The discrepancy between the available resources and also the steadily increased consumption of healthcare. I will not go into the details, but you know it's all about demography. It's about we're now better to cure patients with previously lethal disorders. The diseases, sorry, now they can survive, but they will need surveillance, chronically ill patients, etc., etc. So all this, what I've heard today, and let's summarize that in some kind of headline: medical technology. Investments are a prerequisite for us to bridge that gap between the increasing gap between the resources available and also the consumption. So I'm very much inspired. I must admit that I think it was a very, very, very good decision of the top management of Chalmers to invest heavily now in health and engineering.
Yeah, so we're really happy to hear that. It's very exciting, I think, for me and for many other researchers to really feel the need from, really solving real-world problems. That's what we're trying to do. But in this case, it's sort of health is a major, major importance for the entire society. So of course, this is very motivating for all of us, I think. But it's also a little bit scary. So we hope that we can be able to meet your expectations. Christian, you've been listening on Zoom or YouTube, whatever. Do you have anything to add?
Well, yes, thank you for inviting me. It's been great to listen to all of the presenters, very interesting indeed. And I agree with Anders as well that this is really an upcoming topic in general, and it will, I think, it will increase the cost initially, but the main goal here is to decrease the costs. And the more we use technology and digitalization, I think we're going to decrease the cost in general. Martin, you sent me a link about AI, artificial intelligence used in MRI machines for knee MRIs, and you can decrease the time needed in the MRI machine. All those different aspects of what you can do to be more effective in general in healthcare. That's what we're going to aim for. And also another aspect is that we can democratize good healthcare to countries and populations that don't have it. If we do create some kind of digitalization of AI, of assessment of needs or whatever you can do, other peoples in developing countries can use that. If you look at Africa, for instance, they have a very young population in general. They have very high volume of people using smartphones and so on. I think that's also one of the aspects in general of in the world that we could, digitalization and AI will increase their healthcare systems and make it better for them as well.
Thank you. Jenny, from the region perspective or from your perspective, we're kicking off this area of advance in health engineering now. What would you say are the main, or what is the added value of us creating this area of advance?
So, thank you. I'm very sorry that I missed the actual event, but I have been following this area of advance during its creation, and I must admit, and I agree with Anders, that I'm very excited, and I think you have, I really like the broad perspective of health that you have included in the area of advance. So, from the region perspective, of course, we have two main tasks as a region. One is to run the healthcare, which Anders is representing here today, but it's also the regional development where I work. And I think that the area of advance, in a very good way, addresses both the tasks of the region. One in supporting the healthcare with all these technologies in this broad perspective, but also to be a node of regional development. Chalmers is a very important university in the region, and both as a employer and a node for really good research. And we need to have a collaboration around this, where both the public sector, the rest of the public sector, and the industry can meet over this area of health engineering. And I think that this will be a great node for that.
Yeah, let's hope so. Anders, is there anything you would like to add?
I think I'll revert to that in a few minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And if I can add something more, I think also that we have to turn the perspective around, and that we in the region also have a lot to learn from Chalmers. You can offer us not only when it comes to the actual research, but also in your way of handling and your cooperation with the non-public sector, because you have so much more and better experiences of that than we do in the region.
Thank you. That's nice words.
I thought about it another second. I have a pretty pragmatic view on this. From a regional perspective, or system perspective, you might say, this is also, of course, important. I mean, we're talking about possibilities for people for us to recruit people to the region, workplaces, taxpayers, whatever it takes. So I think that they will have, yes, we have a common view on this with somewhat different perspectives. But our perspective, I think it's your perspective as well, Jenny, is that towards the end of the day, it's all about the individual patient. We have high quality, yes, we have, but that can be even better. And we need to, as you said, Christian, also we need to increase, I'm sorry to use the word perhaps, but efficiency in our system. We need to liberate many thousands of working hours from doctors, from nurses, from MBAs, etc., etc. Why is that? Well, due to this, what we said initially. We have to bridge the gap between those curves, so to speak. So yes, there is very high expectations and return of investment. Yes, I think we can expect a pretty rapid return of investment if we have a real systemic perspective on that.
So saving time is almost as valuable as saving money then, or maybe it goes hand in hand. But as you say, efficiency means treating more patients.
Well, yes, we need to get more health care for each spending crown, so to speak. Swedish krona, sorry.
Jenny, anything more to add? No. Okay, so we've listened a lot to challenges presented here today, and with obvious focus on the current pandemic. But what other kind of main challenges are we facing that we together can make a difference? What do you say, Christian? Do you see any big topics, big challenges from your perspective?
Well, from my perspective, it's more of an orthopedic perspective in general. And there are so many challenges in this area that we need to, just do something about. And I would say the most interesting for me right now is prevention, to stop people getting sick and getting injured, getting hurt. It could be elderly who falls and get a cervical neck fracture, which has really high mortality rate for these patients. It could be a young patient who get an ACL injury, which could change their life and in general, and also actually shorten their life. If you look at Swedeheart, you can see that they have more heart attacks and lower life expectancy for something that happened when they were young. So how do we prevent these events to happen, and to use that in different ways, like smart arenas, where you can see which patients or which soccer players are at risk for injury, or in elderly patients, you can develop different kinds of tools to make them less prone to falling, which are done right now in Sweden, quite heavily research on that. So I would say so many different areas, not only to minimize the cost on healthcare, but also preventing people from getting sick. That's also something we need to think about.
So that's a nice pass to Cecilia and Rickard and everyone else in that profile too. Anders, you were moving, so I guess you wanted to...
I think it's a very interesting and important topic that you bring up there, Christian. And to refer to what we just heard about predictive analysis, now with the focus on COVID. I think we should widen that scope, because now with modern technology, yes, we need to develop tools for predicting. In the emergency unit, irrespective of if it's for infectious diseases or surgical trauma or internal medicine or whatever, yes, what's the risk of sending this patient home, or should I put risk for developing whatever complications or even reach of death, or better put the patient in a bed, but also from a societal perspective, and also connecting to what we heard during this previous presentation from the leaders of the various programs here. We need these tools also to work upstream, as you said, to prevent whatever neck fracture or heart attack or whatever it is. That information that we need so we can act upstream, so that event, perhaps fatal event downstream, that will never happen. And there's also, talking about money again then, or financial resources perhaps, that will also add to and help us to guide the resources to the people that really need it to have this whatever need for hospital care.
Yeah.
To work upstream to prevent is much cost effective. And we must, that's an important area to focus on.
So that's something we should remember when creating future matchmaking events and workshops, to focus more maybe on these challenges. Jenny, we have talked a lot about COVID-19, and obviously there are probably many challenges related to that still, but we also have a big challenge after, with all the healthcare that is not conducted for the moment. How do we handle that? I mean, what
do you mean connected to COVID or not?
No, I mean all the surgeries that are not being done, and everything that has to wait.
Yes, the queues that are growing. Yes, and I think that actually addresses the increasing, not only connected to COVID, but the increasing discrepancy between what we as citizens expect to get from the healthcare and what the healthcare actually can provide us with when it comes to access and to how long we wait for treatment, which of course now is a huge mountain of people that are waiting because of the COVID. And I think that here we need the research, and we need to cooperate in new digital solutions, how to meet the expectation from the citizens, how to access healthcare in a more efficient way. And I think that is actually a huge challenge that I would like to add.
And I think one of the challenges related to that is that we're not able to meet as much. So we're not really able to prepare as efficiently as we would like to, perhaps, for meeting this. But I agree. Bo, we maybe have something from the chat.
Yes, we have another question, which relates to this, which partly in the prevention part. How do we deal with the thing that people will be working longer? Pension age is going up, and that's part maybe of the upstreams thing that also Anders was talking about. How do we address that thing from this area of advance and in collaboration with our partners?
Anyone?
Yeah, I mean that means both prevention and staying healthy, as was mentioned, and on the upside, of course, we get more tax money to pay for for it. So that is, but that is of course a challenge. And how do we keep a healthy work life for so much longer? That is a challenge that needs to be addressed.
Okay. Before we let Ann-Sofie round up, I think we should also discuss. We have a lot of different initiatives and a lot of platforms. So how do we really get these to work together? I mean, it's always nice to form an area of advance or have a center. But the challenge is to actually get it going and address the challenges together. It's not an easy question, so that's why I'm phrasing it, and I don't have to answer. But maybe someone wants to have a go. Anders?
Well, I can start with making, well, we've already heard about it. For you that are working with AI and in healthcare, we have an upcoming event, the 23rd of September, and our expectation for all of you to participate is very, very high. And perhaps I may, it crosses my mind what late Steve Jobs said to John Scully, by that time president of the Pepsi company. He said something like, do you want to continue the rest of your life to sell sugar water, or do you want to join me and change the world? All right, I'm sorry for my trying to sound American. I'm not that successful. Anyway, to paraphrase him, yes, working with science, with projects within the healthcare sector, it's very, very important, and it's also very meaningful. So yes, here is a possibility, here's a chance for all of us to make real footprints, to make real footprints in this area of research. Focus on healthcare.
And I think that one of the most important words here is trust. We need to build trust between both our organizations and also the surrounding society. and to allow people to fail and allow people to cooperate, and that has to be I mean, both on a strategic level and on the floor level, we need to support and encourage more cooperation and between our organizations.
Yeah. And I think one secret in that is also being able to meet or interact. And I guess you can sign off on that too, Christian, that we started once with a very simple question, a small question, and now it's like 10 questions every week with new topics, just because we are meeting. And I think that's examples that we have seen before as well with Robert's presentation and other interactions with people from other organizations.
Yes, and I agree with that. And I think one of the most important things here to get this started is just building bridges between us and platforms for discussions. And then it's just like a ripple effect. You can I noticed that other researchers in other areas are asking me, what are you doing with Chalmers? How's that going? Have you done anything interesting? And I tell them what we're doing, and they say, wow, that's interesting. I want to do that as well. Who do I get in touch with? And I think this is just the beginning of a new type of research, an area research that's going to explode next couple of years. And I think we're a good start in Sweden and in Gothenburg especially, just because we are so close to each other. Not only that we are physically close to each other, but we also understand each other and we have the same goals. And I think this will promote our research and development in this area immensely.
Thank you. And I would like to thank the entire panel. I realized that we should have planned more time for this discussion. We have more things to say and more things to discuss, but I would also like to give Ann-Sofie the opportunity to close with some final words. And as a background for that roundup, we also have a final Mentimeter question. And that's really a rather simple question, but it has many answers, perhaps. So how can we support all of you? How can we support your engagement in the area of health? And please log in again to Mentimeter and answer. Now it's a word cloud, so hopefully we will see that growing while Ann-Sofie gets the opportunity to do some summary of what we have seen here today and thoughts ahead. Please, Ann-Sofie.
Thank you, Martin. So I've been taking some notes, listening to everybody speaking. And I think to summarize what we've heard today, we can first of all conclude, I think, that health engineering is a complementary part of Chalmers' area of advanced family. And I think we also can conclude that health engineering offers a red thread for all of us to connect across campus with all the various different research that we all do here at Chalmers. And I think also we can say that health engineering is actually boosting collaboration with Chalmers researchers and our core partners at Sahlgrenska University Hospital, Academy, and Gothenburg University. And I think also we can say that it seems that interdisciplinary research shows that together, when we come from different parts with different competences, we can attack and address challenges together that are at a higher level than we do on our own. And we have also shown that health engineering have an infrastructure based on profiles and centers that have a high potential to network and grow. And we believe that health engineering can be a strong partner in solving both the regional and global challenges within the area of health. And therefore, we are looking forward for our researchers at Chalmers and our core partners, and also industry, who also should be mentioned, to get involved in various activities that will come ahead. We have mentioned 3 today, where I can repeat again. The first one already in September, there's going to be a joint matchmaking event for researchers at Chalmers to come up with technical AI solutions for healthcare. And this will be followed in October with a master thesis event where actually PIs can meet and try to pool all the students from all these different universities together. And we hope that this, if this is successful, this will also be an upcoming and repeated event. So we can host these at Chalmers and Sahlgrenska, and hopefully our students learn to know that you can look not only in your own neighborhood for projects, but also more widely, and especially we hope to boost for projects within the area of health and technology. I think that's my summan av kardemumman, the summary of what we've heard today.
Yeah, I think it's a great summary, and we're really looking forward to kickstarting this area of advance and connecting us to all the important people that we have around.
Yeah.
And we have your input. We see a lot of people in need of funding, but also that it's obvious that we can support in other ways, creating these meeting places and workshops and everything else that we have planned. So hopefully you will stay tuned and join us ahead. Thank you very much for today, and thank you for joining from wherever you were.
And thank you to our guests too.
Thank you.
Thank you.